Imagine walking into a room, and without uttering a word, you command respect. It's not confidence, it's something deeper, presence. The unspoken energy we carry can influence, attract, and shift the atmosphere around us. This isn't manipulation, it's a silent power that has been understood by the greatest minds in philosophy. What if I told you that mastering this power could change the way you connect with the world? Stay with me, because we're about to unlock the secrets of presence and how it can shape your life without saying a word. Let's dive into the essence of what truly shapes the way we influence others without even speaking. Logos. This ancient concept, rooted deeply in Stoic philosophy, isn't about grand gestures or persuasive speeches. It's not about dominating a conversation or proving your worth through actions. Logos is about the invisible, powerful force that flows through your presence, the energy you project without trying, the subtle gravity that draws people in, even when you remain silent. At its core, Logos represents clarity. Clarity of mind, clarity of purpose, and the clarity of self-respect. It's about standing firm in your truth without needing validation from others. In a world that's constantly trying to grab your attention, Logos allows you to cut through the noise. When you are aligned with your inner truth, people around you can feel it, even without words. This alignment is magnetic, not because of anything you do, but because of who you are. Think of the individuals you've encountered, those rare people who walk into a room and without saying a word, you feel a shift. They don't need to dominate a conversation to command respect. Their presence alone creates a magnetic pull. It's not charisma or confidence as we usually think of it. It's something deeper, something that speaks directly to the ego without force, but with undeniable clarity. Logos is about being, not doing. It's about the stillness and the strength that comes from within when you are secure in your own identity. This is what the Stoics mastered. They understood that external validation is fleeting, but inner clarity is eternal. They didn't chase approval, and in doing so, they attracted respect. This kind of silent influence isn't about manipulation, it's the ability to hold space for your truth to resonate, allowing others to meet you on your level. Now think about this. Why is it that some people can walk into a room and instantly captivate everyone's attention without saying a word? It's not that they are louder or more noticeable. It's their energy. It's the clarity of purpose in every action and the stillness that emanates from within them. This is the power of Logos. It is an invisible energy that speaks louder than words, stronger than actions. But here's the truth. Logos isn't something that happens overnight. It's a discipline. It's a daily practice of centering yourself, of becoming so aligned with your values and your truth that you don't feel the need to prove anything to anyone. This clarity becomes a silent force that doesn't chase, doesn't push. It simply is, and people feel it. They may not know why they're drawn to you, but they are. When you embrace Logos, you stop seeking validation. You begin to understand that your value doesn't depend on someone else's opinion or approval. You are already complete. This is a quiet power, a strength that comes not from external accomplishments or recognition, but from your internal alignment. It is the ability to remain unshaken, calm, and grounded, no matter what the world throws at you. But how does this apply to our everyday lives? How do we cultivate this powerful presence? It starts with simple awareness. Every interaction you have is an opportunity to practice this stillness, to embody clarity in the way you carry yourself, the way you listen, the way you respond. The most powerful people don't need to fill the silence with words. They let it breathe. Silence, when paired with self-assurance, becomes a force that draws people in without even trying. Think about the times you've been in a room with someone who wasn't trying to impress anyone. They weren't talking over everyone, trying to be the loudest or the funniest. Instead, they held themselves with such quiet confidence that you found yourself paying attention to them without realizing why. That's the essence of Logos. It's that unspoken influence that causes people to stop and pay attention, not because they are told to, but because they feel something stirring within themselves. This power isn't about being passive, it's active. It's about creating the space for your energy to speak louder than your words. It's about standing firm in your truth and letting the world align around you. Logos is the silent force that allows you to influence others without the need for forceful words or manipulative tactics. When you master this, you stop chasing and start attracting. You stop seeking approval and start living in alignment with your highest purpose. In this quiet confidence, there's a transformative energy. It doesn't just change the way others perceive you, it changes the way you perceive yourself. When you walk through the world with this clarity, you stop being at the mercy of external validation. You become your own anchor, your own measure of success. So, as we move forward, we begin to understand that the true power of influence doesn't lie in how much you say, but in how deeply you know yourself. It's in the silence that you hold in the face of chaos. It's in the way you stand firm in your truth, unaffected by the opinions of others. This is the essence of silent influence. In the next section, we'll explore how this presence, this clarity, challenges the ego of those around us, not through force, but through our ability to simply be. Stay with me as we delve deeper into the art of silent influence and the incredible power that comes with mastering the energy you radiate. Let's take a moment to reflect on a powerful force that shapes almost every interaction we have, the ego. It's this part of us that craves recognition, validation, and acknowledgement. And yet, as much as it drives us, it can also lead to some of our deepest wounds, especially when we face rejection. Now, if we go back to our previous discussion about Logos, the subtle power that comes from being grounded in your truth and presence, we can see how the ego plays a crucial role in how we connect or disconnect with others. You see, the ego is always on the lookout for signs that we matter. It's not just about attention or approval, it's about meaning. The ego wants to know that it's seen, understood, and valued. It wants to feel that its existence carries weight in the eyes of others. And this is where rejection stings so much. It's not just about being denied something we wanted, it's deeper than that. Rejection is painful because it touches that core part of us, the ego, that wants to be valued. When someone brushes us off, ignores us, or doesn't reciprocate our effort, it's not just a social slight, it's a wound. The ego whispers, "You're not enough. You're invisible." And in that moment, something inside of us shrinks, contracts, and suffers. But why does this happen? It's because the ego doesn't want approval, it wants meaning. It needs to feel that it has a place in the world, that it matters to others. And when we don't get that validation, it's like the ground beneath us begins to shake. We feel rejected not just on the surface, but deep within us, in the very essence of who we think we are. But here's the profound truth. This pain, this feeling of inadequacy, isn't something that can simply be fixed by more approval or more validation. What truly heals the ego is reflection. Let me explain. When someone looks at us and sees more in us than we see in ourselves, something powerful happens. When they say, "I see more in you than you're showing," it awakens something inside us. It doesn't just stroke our ego, it challenges us. That challenge, the one that reflects our unspoken potential, is what triggers growth. It's not about giving us compliments or praise, it's about seeing us in a way we haven't seen ourselves yet. And in that moment, our ego shifts. Not because it's been pandered to, but because it's been awakened. This is where the power of silent influence comes back into play. When you are fully aligned with your truth and purpose and you reflect that strength into the world, you start to speak to the ego of others, not with flattery, but with silent recognition. You show them that they are capable of more than they even realize. You don't chase them or try to impress them. You simply hold space for their growth. You allow them to see their own potential, even if they haven't recognized it yet. And in doing so, you begin to move the ego of those around you. It's a subtle process, but incredibly powerful. When someone stands in your presence and they sense that you're not seeking their approval, that you're not performing for their validation, something shifts within them. They begin to wonder, what is it about them that I'm not feeling in myself? And that's when the ego gets curious. It's not a forced challenge, it's an invitation. The invitation to rise, to become more, to meet the higher version of themselves that you're reflecting. But let me be clear, this isn't about manipulation. This isn't about controlling others or bending them to your will. It's about aligning yourself so deeply with your own truth that others are naturally drawn to rise with you. The key here is not to chase validation, not to seek recognition. It's to stand fully in your truth and to let others come to the realization on their own. And that's where the magic happens. The ego, when given the space to rise and be challenged, starts to transform. It starts to break free from the shackles of comparison, of self-doubt, of needing validation from the outside world. It becomes awakened to its true potential, and that process is deeply, deeply empowering. So, as we move forward, we see that the pain of rejection, the wounds that come from not being seen, are not the end of the story. They're actually the beginning of something much greater. They show us where we're still holding on to the need for external validation, and they invite us to release that attachment, to stop chasing after approval and instead stand fully in our truth. As you start practicing this, as you start reflecting your own self-worth back into the world, you'll notice that the ego of others begins to shift too. Not because you're manipulating them, but because you've become someone who doesn't need their approval. You've become someone who is grounded in their own truth, and that truth begins to pull others up, even without you saying a word. Now, this doesn't mean rejection will stop hurting immediately. The ego still feels that sting, but the difference now is that you begin to see rejection for what it truly is. An opportunity for growth, a mirror that shows you where you're still attaching your worth to external factors. When you see it for what it is, you stop chasing approval. You stop allowing your ego to be shaped by someone else's judgment. You start standing tall in your own power. And that, my friend, is when real transformation begins. In the next section, we'll explore how we can use this understanding of the ego's need for validation to master our own inner dialogue, and how this shift in awareness can completely change the way we interact with the world. Stay with me as we delve deeper into this journey of self-mastery and silent influence. In the last section, we uncovered the profound relationship between rejection and the ego, the silent force within each of us that craves recognition and meaning. But here's the truth. While rejection might hurt, it's not the end of the story. The ego doesn't need more praise or flattery to heal from its wounds. It needs presence. Presence is a force so subtle yet so powerful, it can shift someone's entire sense of self without uttering a single word. This brings us to the core of what we're talking about today. How presence heals the ego without words. Let me take you on a journey of understanding where the simplest yet most transformative form of communication exists, not in what we say, but in how we show up. Presence, when you truly embody it, is magnetic. It's that stillness, that inner clarity that radiates from you when you're fully in alignment with who you are. It's not something you try to perform or put on. It's the result of knowing your worth, standing firm in it, and letting the world feel that energy. When you enter a room with this kind of presence, you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to speak louder or more convincingly to demand attention. Your presence alone becomes a statement, an unspoken communication that resonates on a deep, almost primal level. Think about the people you've met in life who seem to have this effect. The ones who walk into a room and without saying a word command attention and respect. It's not because they're trying to do so. It's not because of their appearance or their charisma. It's because they carry themselves with an inner steadiness, a certainty in who they are. And that steadiness, when aligned with your true self, speaks louder than any words ever could. They don't need to shout. They don't need to prove themselves. They simply are. And in that being, they create a kind of gravity, drawing people in without ever having to lift a finger. This presence, this internal alignment, is the antidote to the ego's wounds. The ego, as we discussed, seeks validation. It craves meaning. And when it doesn't get that validation from others, it feels small, rejected, unseen. But when someone with true presence enters the room, the ego feels something it's been longing for: acknowledgement. Not in the form of shallow compliments or fake praises, but in the form of being seen, truly seen, for what they are and for what they could become. Your stillness gives their ego space to breathe, to rise, to grow. You're not telling them anything, you're not pushing them, you're simply existing in your own truth. And that truth has the power to reflect back to them the person they can be, the greatness they may have forgotten about themselves. What happens next is profound. The person with an awakened ego doesn't just feel seen in a superficial way, their entire self-image starts to shift. The subtle power of your presence has awakened something deep inside them. They begin to question their own limitations, their own doubts, and that is where real transformation starts. Think of it this way: if words are the surface level of communication, presence is the depth. Words can motivate, can uplift, but presence challenges. It challenges the ego in a way that words cannot. When you stand firmly in your own truth, when you refuse to bend or shrink in the face of judgment or approval, you challenge the ego of everyone around you. They may not even realize it consciously, but they begin to feel something shift inside them. It's not about confrontation, it's about invitation. You're inviting them to rise to their highest potential, not through force, but through the quiet, unspoken message you send with every movement, every glance, every breath. Here's where it gets even more powerful. The healing of the ego doesn't always need to be a dramatic moment. It can be a quiet act. A look that says, "I see you, I see your potential." A moment of stillness in a conversation where you give the other person space to think, to reflect, to meet themselves. You're not speaking down to them, you're not challenging them outright, but you're providing them with the conditions they need to grow. And as they rise, so too does their sense of self-worth. This, my friend, is how you speak to the ego without ever saying a word. In our society today, we're often taught that influence comes from being loud, from being forceful, from saying the right things at the right time. But true influence, the kind that resonates deeply and lasts, is about something much more profound. It's about being. It's about standing in your own truth, unshaken and unwavering, and letting that energy speak louder than anything else. It's about knowing that you don't need to explain yourself to anyone. Your value doesn't need to be proven to anyone. You are enough simply by being who you are. And the beauty of this kind of presence is that it doesn't need to be reserved for the extraordinary moments. You can cultivate this in every interaction, no matter how small or mundane. Whether you're speaking to a friend, a colleague, or a stranger, your presence can carry weight. The way you carry yourself, the way you hold space for others, can be a quiet force that encourages growth, not just in others, but within yourself as well. By showing up fully as who you are, without needing to perform or over-explain, you create the conditions for both your own personal evolution and the evolution of those around you. So, as we reflect on the concept of silent influence, think about the power that comes with being fully present. This kind of influence doesn't manipulate, it elevates, it doesn't demand, it invites, and it begins always with a solid foundation of self-awareness. When you know who you are, when you stand firm in your truth, that presence becomes a powerful tool for healing and transformation, not just for yourself, but for others as well. In the next section, we'll explore how presence and energy can become a tool for influence that goes beyond words and surface-level interactions. How can we use this stillness to shape our relationships, our actions, and our impact on the world? Stay with me as we dive deeper into the art of non-verbal communication and the power of simply being. As we've just uncovered, the foundation of influence is presence. But there's one aspect of presence that often goes unnoticed, one that's subtle, yet undeniably powerful: silence. Yes, silence. It's a powerful force in communication, but so often we underestimate its ability to shape how we influence others and how we move through the world. In this section, we'll explore the immense impact silence can have on influence, and how mastering the art of silence can elevate your personal power and presence in ways words never could. Now, we're all familiar with the noise of life, the constant chatter of our thoughts, the endless stream of communication that floods our lives, whether it's through social media, work emails, or casual conversation. But have you ever stopped to consider how much of that noise is really necessary? Or how much power we can reclaim by simply not speaking? Silence, when embraced intentionally, is one of the most powerful tools we can wield. It's the space where all true change begins. Let's take a moment to break down the subtle yet transformative impact silence has on influence. The first thing you need to understand is that silence isn't about avoidance. It's not about retreating or shutting down. It's the opposite. Silence, when used correctly, is an active and conscious choice to hold space. It's an intentional refusal to fill the air with unnecessary words, and instead allowing the situation to breathe, to unfold in its own way. You see, when you stand in silence, you're creating space for reflection. You're giving others the opportunity to think, to feel, and to confront their own internal dialogues. Imagine yourself in a conversation, and there's a lull in the discussion. Most people would scramble to fill that gap with more words, more thoughts, more opinions. But what if instead you simply allowed the silence to exist? What if you didn't rush to speak or explain yourself, but instead sat in that moment, fully present, allowing the energy in the room to shift naturally? What happens is profound. Silence creates space for others to reflect on what they've said, to process their own thoughts, and ultimately to engage more deeply with you. The ego, the part of us that constantly craves validation and approval, feels the weight of that silence. It senses that you're not chasing anything. You're not trying to impress, and that, my friends, is magnetic. When you stop trying to control the conversation, when you let the silence fill the space between words, you invite others to step into their own truth. And in doing so, you guide them to a place where their ego can't hide behind the noise of superficial conversation. This brings us to a very powerful concept: silence as a reflection of self-assurance. When you stand firm in your presence, when you don't rush to fill the silence, it's a clear signal to others that you are at peace with yourself. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to validate your worth through constant chatter. Your silence speaks volumes about your internal steadiness and your sense of self. In a world that is constantly vying for attention, the person who can remain silent and still has something profoundly magnetic about them. Think about the most influential people you've encountered, those who had an impact without even needing to speak. Chances are they exuded this quiet confidence, this ability to hold space without feeling the need to dominate or control the narrative. Their silence wasn't awkward or uncomfortable. It was comforting. It invited you to be more of who you truly were. And it was in that stillness that something in you began to shift. In the next part of this discussion, we'll go deeper into how silence communicates authority and power. But for now, let's take a moment to appreciate the beauty of silence and what it allows to unfold. It's in silence that we allow ourselves to stand fully grounded in our truth. It's in silence that we release the need to seek validation from others. And it's in silence that we give others the space to discover who they are, without judgment, without pressure, but with presence. Now, silence also has a unique way of influencing the ego on a deeper level. The ego, as we've discussed before, thrives on recognition and validation. It seeks acknowledgement in every interaction. But when someone stands before you in silence, not needing anything from you, it triggers something inside. It's not discomfort, it's curiosity. The ego, no longer fed by superficial praise or approval, starts to wonder, why does this person not need my validation? And in that moment, the ego is gently pushed into a space where it must confront its own fears and insecurities. It must question its need for external validation. This is where real power lies. The person who can remain silent, who can refuse to feed the ego, has the ability to awaken something in others that they didn't even realize was dormant. It's not an aggressive force, it's a gentle invitation for the ego to confront its own shadow. And that, my friends, is how transformation begins. But silence, like all tools, must be used intentionally. You can't be silent just for the sake of being silent. Silence must be rooted in your own inner clarity, your own self-assurance. If you're uncomfortable with your own thoughts, if you're insecure about your place in the world, your silence will come across as awkward, passive, or even defensive. But when your silence is backed by confidence, when you are at peace with who you are, it becomes an active and powerful force in your communication. So how can you begin to integrate the power of silence into your life? First, start by recognizing the moments where you're tempted to fill the silence with unnecessary words. Are you trying to impress someone? Are you seeking validation? Are you over-explaining to make sure you're understood? The next time you catch yourself in one of these moments, pause. Don't rush to fill the silence. Let it breathe. Allow the energy in the room to settle. You'll be amazed at how much power you can communicate simply by not speaking. As we move forward, we'll explore how this power of silence plays into influence and connection on a deeper level. But for now, take a moment to reflect on how you can use silence in your own life, whether in conversations, relationships, or even within yourself. Because silence, when used consciously, is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of something much more profound. Stay with me, because what comes next will show you how to take the stillness of silence and turn it into a transformative force for growth, connection, and personal power. Now, let's dive deeper into one of the most transformative concepts when it comes to mastering your presence: living without the constant need for approval. In a world where validation seems to be the currency we trade in, whether it's on social media, in our professional lives, or even in personal relationships, living without approval can feel like swimming against the current. But what if I told you that the true power lies in not needing approval at all? Living without the need for validation doesn't mean rejecting connection or ignoring feedback. It's about detaching your self-worth from the opinions of others. It's about recognizing that your value is intrinsic, not based on how others perceive you. When you understand this concept, something incredible happens. You stop chasing approval, and instead you start attracting respect, admiration, and real connections in a way that's authentic and lasting. You see, the ego thrives on validation. It feeds on the acknowledgement of others. We've all felt that rush when someone notices us, compliments us, or shows us recognition. It's a natural human desire to want to feel seen and valued. But here's the problem. When your sense of self-worth is tied to external validation, you're living in a constant state of reaction. You're constantly looking to others to tell you who you are, what you're worth, and how you should feel about yourself. That's exhausting, and ultimately it undermines your true sense of power. True power comes from within. It comes from standing in your own truth without the need to prove it to anyone. When you can walk into a room without needing anyone's approval, without needing to be seen or recognized, you command a presence that's undeniable. This isn't about arrogance or ego, it's about self-assurance. It's the ability to hold your ground, to speak your truth, and to be who you are, regardless of what others think. Let's be clear, living without approval doesn't mean you become indifferent to the people around you. You'll still care about others. You'll still seek meaningful connections, but there's a huge difference between caring about others and needing their validation. The moment you stop seeking approval from the outside, you begin to discover something far more powerful, your own inner peace, groundedness, and authenticity. Think about it. When you stop seeking approval, you stop playing the game of comparison. And that's one of the biggest shifts you'll experience. The need for validation creates a cycle of comparison. We compare our achievements, our appearance, our relationships, and even our personal growth to others. We constantly measure ourselves against an external yardstick, which is, in itself, a never-ending game. There's always someone with more, someone who seems to have it all together, someone who seems more successful, more happy, more everything. This comparison only weakens your self-esteem and takes away your power. But when you stop seeking approval, you stop comparing yourself to others. You stop looking outward for the yardstick of success, and instead, you start measuring yourself against your own standards. You begin to ask yourself, am I being true to who I am? Am I living in alignment with my values? Am I growing in the direction I want to go? This shift in perspective is powerful because it moves the locus of control from outside of you to inside of you. You no longer live in reaction to what others think. You live in response to who you are and who you want to become. Now, let's talk about how this plays out in real life. Think about how you navigate your personal relationships. How often do you catch yourself seeking validation from those you care about? Maybe it's a compliment, a word of encouragement, or even just a nod of approval. You're not alone in this. It's something we all do. But what if, instead of needing others' approval, you simply stood in your own truth and allowed those relationships to develop naturally, without the need to impress or prove anything? When you stop seeking approval, your relationships shift. The dynamic changes. You start attracting people who respect you for who you truly are, not for the version of yourself you've tried to create in order to gain their validation. When your self-worth isn't dependent on approval, you stop giving away your power in relationships. You stop tolerating behavior that doesn't serve you or your growth. And most importantly, you stop trying to control how others perceive you. This shift also plays out in the workplace. How many times have you found yourself working hard, not because you're passionate about your job, but because you want to be recognized, promoted, or praised by your boss? How often do we find ourselves looking for external validation to feel like we're enough in our professional lives? This constant drive for approval can lead to burnout and dissatisfaction. But when you stop seeking approval from others in the workplace, you shift your focus from external rewards to internal growth. You start working because it's in line with your values, not because you want someone else to tell you that you're worthy. Let's also touch on a huge part of this, social media. This is where the need for approval has been supercharged in today's world. We check likes, comments, and shares to feel validated. We post pictures, status updates, and videos, hoping for external validation. It's easy to fall into this trap, especially when social media is designed to encourage that very thing. But the moment you realize that your value is not determined by how many followers you have or how many likes your posts get, you free yourself. You free yourself from the constant need to perform, to measure your worth through others' eyes. Living without approval is not about being indifferent or cold. It's about aligning with your inner truth and choosing to show up authentically. It's about recognizing that you are valuable because you exist, not because of how others see you. It's about giving yourself permission to be who you are, without apologies, without needing to fit into anyone's mold, and without the constant pressure to impress. As we wrap up this section, let me leave you with one thought. The true power you hold doesn't come from others' approval. It comes from your ability to stand firm in who you are, to show up authentically, and to embrace your value from within. When you stop seeking validation, you create a space where you can thrive, grow, and connect in ways that are genuine and fulfilling. You stop chasing people's attention and start attracting their respect. In the next section, we will explore the deeper levels of presence and how this absence of approval not only empowers you, but also challenges those around you to grow with you. Stay with me, because we're about to unlock a new level of influence that is grounded, powerful, and rooted in your unshakable self. Let's now dive into one of the most transformative aspects of presence, reflecting potential back to others. This is a practice that many people unknowingly perform, yet few truly understand how powerful it can be. When you have mastered the art of not needing approval, you are in a position to offer something to those around you that is both rare and invaluable. It's the ability to reflect back to others who they could become, without saying a word. This isn't about offering empty praise or telling people what they want to hear. It's about seeing something in them that they may not even see in themselves. It's about recognizing their untapped potential, their strengths, and the things they might be hiding from the world, or even themselves. When you can see that potential clearly, without judgment or interference, and when you reflect it back to them, it creates a shift in their perception of themselves. It calls them to rise to a higher level. Now, why is this so powerful? The answer lies in the dynamics of the ego and self-worth. Remember what we talked about in the previous section. The ego thrives on validation, but it also craves meaning. It wants to know that it matters, not just in the eyes of others, but in the world. That's why rejection hurts so much. It's not just about being dismissed. It's about feeling like you're invisible, like your existence doesn't matter. But here's where the power of reflection comes in. When you reflect someone's potential back to them, you are showing them that they are seen. You are letting them know that you recognize something inside of them that they might not even be aware of yet. This is not flattery. This is a deep, grounded recognition that calls forth their inner strength. You are subtly challenging them, not by pointing out what's wrong, but by inviting them to become more of who they already are at their core. This type of reflection is what leads to transformation. It's not about telling someone they're amazing or offering superficial compliments. It's about seeing the bigger picture. You reflect not just who they are in the present moment, but who they could be if they truly stepped into their potential. And in that moment, you awaken something inside them. You awaken their own sense of possibility, their desire to rise. Think about the times when you've been challenged in this way. When someone, perhaps a mentor, or even a friend told you, "I see more in you than you're showing," or "You're capable of so much more than you realize." Those words didn't just feel good in the moment. They sparked something deeper within you. They made you stop and think, what if I really could do more? What if I could become something greater than I thought possible? When you reflect potential back to someone, you aren't giving them a quick fix or a feel-good moment. You're offering them an invitation to step into their truth, to see themselves through a new lens, and to recognize that they have the power to rise above their self-imposed limitations. This is the beauty of the quiet power that we're talking about. It's not about demanding anything from others. It's about offering them the space to meet their own potential. And when you do this, you create a ripple effect. You invite others to step into their own greatness, which in turn creates a cycle of growth and empowerment. They may not fully realize it in the moment, but by reflecting their potential back to them, you've given them a gift. The gift of seeing themselves more clearly, more powerfully, and more expansively than they ever have before. This process isn't one-sided. It's a reciprocal energy exchange. When you reflect potential to others, it doesn't just help them grow, it helps you grow as well. By seeing others in their highest light, you start seeing yourself in a different light as well. You begin to recognize that the power of reflection is not only a tool for helping others, but a tool for deepening your own self-awareness and connection to the world around you. As you reflect others' potential, you also become more attuned to your own. The more you see greatness in others, the more you begin to recognize greatness within yourself. You stop looking for validation outside of yourself, and instead, you start to feel validated in the knowledge that you have the power to help others rise, to help them see their own strength. This is how you build genuine influence. Influence is not about controlling people or manipulating situations. It's about offering them a mirror that reflects their potential, their strength, and their ability to rise. This is the art of silent influence. When you reflect someone's greatness back to them, you don't just help them grow. You help create an environment where everyone around you can thrive. So how do you practice this in your everyday life? Start by truly seeing the people around you. Look past their surface-level behaviors, their insecurities and their mistakes, and instead see who they could be if they let go of their fears and stepped into their full potential. Don't be afraid to reflect that back to them. Tell them, "I see something in you that's incredible, something that others might not notice. I see the strength you have, and I know you're capable of so much more than you realize." This isn't about empty compliments. It's about speaking the truth of what you see in them, even when they don't see it themselves. The impact of this can't be overstated. You'll notice a shift in the way people respond to you. They'll begin to open up, to trust you, to feel seen and understood, and you too will begin to grow. You'll begin to see yourself as a guide, someone who has the power to reflect the greatness in others, and that, in turn, will deepen your sense of purpose and connection. As we move forward, we'll explore the deeper layers of how this influence extends to those around you, how it impacts relationships and strengthens your presence in the world. But remember, the power of reflection is grounded in authenticity. It's not about impressing people, it's about awakening them to their own potential. And in doing so, you awaken your own. Let's delve into one of the most profound and impactful aspects of presence: speaking to someone's ego without saying a word. This concept may seem paradoxical, but it's one of the most powerful tools you can wield in human interactions. It's about tapping into a level of influence that is far deeper than words, far more enduring than surface-level praise or manipulation. To truly understand this concept, we first need to acknowledge something fundamental: the ego. It's the part of us that craves recognition, validation, and a sense of importance. The ego seeks attention and approval. But here's the catch: the ego doesn't respond to the same things that your conscious mind does. It doesn't respond to compliments, flattery, or even persuasion the way you might think. Instead, the ego responds to energy, presence, and stillness. When you can master these elements, you're no longer just speaking to a person, you're communicating with their innermost self, the part that drives their actions, their responses, and even their perceptions. The key to speaking to someone's ego without words lies in your ability to project a kind of stillness and clarity that makes others stop and reflect. Imagine this: you walk into a room, and without saying a word, you command the attention of everyone around you. You don't shout, you don't perform, you simply are. Your presence speaks volumes. People feel your confidence, your self-assurance, your peace. In that moment, the ego of those around you starts to take notice, not because you've said anything, but because your energy is so grounded, so calm that it can't be ignored. Your energy is what's speaking. When you carry yourself in this way, you're not seeking approval. You don't need anyone to validate you. And that is what makes your presence so magnetic. People are drawn to those who aren't chasing attention because it's rare. In a world where everyone is trying to be seen, heard, and validated, those who remain grounded in their own worth without needing external confirmation become a beacon of something far more compelling. Now let's break this down. How do you begin to speak to someone's ego without saying a word? It starts with mastering the art of presence. Presence isn't something you can fake. It's not about trying to appear confident or putting on a show for others. It's about being confident, being grounded in your own worth and not needing anything from anyone. It's about knowing who you are and being comfortable with it, even in the face of judgment or uncertainty. Think about it. How often have you been around someone who, despite not saying much, made you feel seen, heard, and understood? Their presence alone made you reflect on your own actions, your own behaviors, and your own beliefs. That's the power of speaking to someone's ego without words. You don't need to challenge them directly. You don't need to point out their flaws. You don't need to teach them anything. What you need is the ability to simply be. Your calmness, your clarity, your certainty in who you are will make their ego take notice. It's the quiet strength of someone who is unshaken by the noise of the world. It's someone who stands firm in their truth without needing to convince anyone else of it. When you walk into a space with that level of self-assurance, you create an atmosphere where the ego of those around you begins to examine itself. They'll start to question their own behavior, their own beliefs, and their own values, not because you've confronted them, but because you've shown them something they might be lacking. Now let's take this a step further. Why is it so effective to speak to someone's ego in this way? It's because the ego is constantly scanning the environment for validation. It's searching for signs of approval, for cues that it's doing the right thing. But when you present yourself as someone who doesn't need validation, you immediately create a contrast. People will start to wonder, why doesn't this person need validation? What do they know that I don't? That curiosity is the magic. It's the power of silent influence. When someone's ego begins to feel unsettled by your stillness, they'll start to look inward. They'll start questioning their own need for external validation. And in that moment, you've already begun to influence them, not through words, not through actions, but through your presence alone. But there's a deeper layer to this. When you learn to speak to someone's ego without words, you're not just influencing them in the moment. You're planting a seed that can lead to long-term transformation. By simply being who you are, by showing up in your own truth, you create an environment where the people around you can't help but rise to meet you. They start to reflect on their own lives, their own actions, and their own beliefs. You've created space for them to grow. This is why silent influence is so powerful. It's not about dominating conversations or pushing people to change. It's about creating an environment where growth becomes inevitable. When you carry yourself in a way that is rooted in self-assurance and internal clarity, you don't just speak to the surface-level ego. You speak to the deeper part of them that wants to evolve, to grow, and to become the best version of themselves. So how do you practice this in your daily life? Start by being more aware of your own presence. When you walk into a room, what energy do you bring? Are you seeking validation, or are you grounded in your own worth? Are you present with the people around you, or are you distracted, caught up in the need to impress? When you learn to carry yourself with grace, with stillness, with clarity, you'll start to notice how people respond to you. They'll begin to gravitate toward you, not because you're trying to win them over, but because your energy is magnetic. And as you continue to practice this, you'll notice something powerful. You won't need to chase relationships. You won't need to fight for attention. You won't need to prove your worth. Instead, people will come to you. They'll be drawn to your grounded presence, and they'll begin to reflect on their own lives, their own egos, and their own potential. In the next section, we'll explore how silence itself plays a pivotal role in building influence and power. But for now, remember this: your ego, and the ego of those around you, can only be influenced when you stop chasing, stop seeking approval, and simply are. When you stand in your own truth, that's when the real influence begins. As we wrap up this journey through the powerful dynamics of presence, silent influence, and unshakable self-confidence, let's take a moment to reflect. What we've explored here today isn't just theoretical. It's a fundamental shift in how you perceive yourself and interact with the world. And this shift begins from within. We've touched on the profound power of stillness, the unspoken energy that not only influences others, but transforms the way you experience the world. The reality is, in a world that demands constant validation, the greatest strength comes from standing firm in your own truth, without the need to prove yourself to anyone. This silent strength, rooted in inner clarity and alignment, is what makes you magnetic. It's what makes people gravitate toward you, not because you're chasing them, but because you are fully anchored in who you are. Remember, the ego isn't something to fight against. It's a part of all of us, but it can be a source of tremendous power when we learn to master it. The subtle art of speaking to someone's ego without words is about reflecting their potential, not through force, but by holding space for who they can become. When you show up in a room with this kind of presence, not needing to impress, not needing to be liked, you create a space where others can rise to meet you. You don't chase approval, you attract it naturally. This isn't manipulation, it's alignment. The truth is, this journey toward cultivating inner strength is ongoing. It doesn't end here. It's not just about what you do, it's about who you become. It's about the quiet power you build day by day with every choice to stand firm in your values and remain grounded in your purpose. It's a process of letting go of the need to be validated by others and stepping into your own power. Because when you know who you are, when you own your value and live it consistently, you begin to radiate a presence that cannot be ignored. Now, ask yourself, are you ready to walk this path? Are you ready to stand in your truth, to build a life that reflects the strength within you? It's time to let go of the need for constant approval and let your presence speak louder than any words ever could. Because in the silence, in the stillness of your being, lies the power to shift the world around you. If today's message resonated with you, if you felt something stir within, then this is just the beginning. The journey toward cultivating your inner strength and silent power has only just started. And as you continue on this path, remember, your silence isn't empty. It's a force that can change the course of your life and the lives of those around you. Thank you for taking this journey with me today. If this message speaks to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join this growing community of those who are committed to living with intention, with integrity, and with the kind of presence that leaves a lasting impact. Let's continue to grow together. Stay grounded, stay true, and let your silence be your strength. Until next time.